It's 5 o'clock Mountain Time. That means it's time for Tom and Shane business and politics. Today we want to talk about inflation. Time to end inflation. Shane, what do you think? Is there any way to get out of this? Get out of this inflation? We got out of it in 1980 through 1980 to 84, but it doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon.
Well, the difficulty of inflation, and why it's so harmful, is um, a small amount of inflation can drive economic growth, but the opposite, which is where we're at right now, over 10%, it tends to create problems and issues with companies and corporations and even government policy. So
Mhm.
it's it's one of these things that should be talked about because it affects everybody immediately. And the opposite, of course, of inflation is deflation, and
Mhm.
that affects off prices to decline, and that's why because of the debt you have, the Federal Reserve wants a target rate of around 2% inflation.
Mhm. Well, you need it for to make a profit. You need it to make research and development stuff like that. I mean, you got to make a little money.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. So when you look at what it does, is it drives the cost of investment, and it causes investment to be in undeterminable,
Mm-hmm.
and what kind of future costs will be involved in maintaining the valuation that you want. But the real importance of what we wanted to just mention today was we all know from our experience in the market and what happened in 2008 and 9 and the big collapse and Lehman
Mm-hmm.
Brothers and everything. And that was principally done because of the LIBOR rate, which was the London Interest Bank overnight rate. What a bank would charge somebody to come in and borrow 50, 60, 100 million or 200 million overnight. And, it went from half a point to 6%. And they couldn't afford to pay the interest even overnight. So you haven't heard this from anyone, but you're going to hear it from me, because it's taken until December 16th, 2022. So remember, that was 2008. So
Yeah.
last December, the Federal Reserve finally replaced LIPR with the Secure Overnight Financing Rate, or the SOFR. And of course, it's sponsored by and supported by the Federal Reserve. Now, this is why your Federal Reserve Chairman started talking about the Fed's balance sheet last April. Was because they were at 12 trillion, and he knew December was coming quick with this, and he also knew that he had to be in a position where he could lend and provide cash overnight to banks. So the problem is that, guess what? The Federal Reserve guarantees a secure overnight financing
Yeah.
rate with Treasury bonds. So now, folks, here's the big problem. The rate today is over 5%,
Yeah.
and it has been since the transfer to the secured overnight rate. And the problem is these regional banks that had all these federal treasuries that they had bought were not in a position to go to the Fed to get cash and borrow it overnight to cover the withdrawals that were occurring instantly by companies from their banks. So, they may have changed the guidelines from London to New York and the Federal Reserve, and from, the Bank of England to the Federal Reserve's Treasury debt to secure it. But they didn't have any protocols to be able to provide that kind of cash overnight
Mhm.
via the internet, via email
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
e-banking.
Mhm.
That's always been
Mhm.
their problem, and this was the same cause of the depression in 26. Was literally there
Mhm.
wasn't physical cash in banks, and the
Yeah.
Federal Reserve didn't have the ability. we've all seen It's a Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
and the people wanted to come in and get their cash out, and he's standing there saying, "But I lent your cash to him and to her
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
them.
Right.
Yeah, I've only
That's
got
the
10.
problem.
I only have $10 in my savings and loan.
Yeah.
What do you need? What do you need to live on? Tell me." But
Yeah. There you
so
go.
this is why that I felt we should talk about inflation. We already all know
No.
what it means, but
Mhm.
how it's affecting you directly, and what the danger is. And so that's why I still say that uh, February, you saw the beginning of a recession because of this.
Mhm.
That resulted in the collapse of 5 regional banks. That's resulted in inflation being driven to 12 to 15%. And the price of oil is stalled because people aren't using it, and the list just grows. And
Mhm.
we've gone through these occurrences now for the last several weeks, of things that are occurring, including this whole issue with, and then I'll be quiet, with regards to your Treasury of the Secretary saying your country's in trouble. Well, this week your Treasury Department sold, excuse me, 20 billion in um,
Treasury bonds.
182-day bill, plus they sold another 22 billion in 91-day bills. So now you're at 45, right? And
Mhm.
then they sold another 17. So that's 60 billion in 161-day bills. What this means is that they can fund themselves. They didn't need to lift the debt limit. They didn't need to have this whole discussion about supposedly, the financial markets are going to have a
Mhm.
horrific time. That's all just a misguided a lie. The reality
Mhm.
is your government can and will continue to fund itself weekly for the money it needs. It's just an
Yeah.
ongoing process.
Well, yeah, it's really stupid the way they do it. They set this limit, and every time they reach it, they freak out, and then they always raise it. I don't know what the yeah, I don't know what it is that they why they're still operating with 1930 economics,
Hmm.
depression economics when we're in the we're in the 2000s now, folks.
Yeah, the 21st
We've
century. Yeah.
we've got microwaves. We've got we've got stuff. So it's stupid to go along with this,
Well,
but
it
yeah,
doesn't make
yeah,
any sense because the
mm,
trillions that they spent or didn't
mm,
spend, as we
mm,
said, they were it was virtual money.
yeah,
The Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department were responsible to deliver that money to government departments, state
mm,
governments, and they did it all by e-transfer, on the internet.
yeah.
That's why it wasn't cash out of the bank. They didn't print money and send it out. And
Although
so,
they could,
no, it'd take them years to print the money. But
well,
anyway,
I
having
don't know.
said
Those
that,
presses work pretty fast. I think when you're printing,
24, yeah, but it's 24/7, and the printing presses right now are just replacing old currency. And
yeah, but
they can barely keep up with that.
you can print $10,000 and $100,000 bills.
They actually had them back,
Yeah.
in the 30s,
Hmm.
because of the
Well, they still
depression.
have them. They're only between banks, though. They're only
That's
allowed
right.
between banks. But
Correct.
well, a couple things I wanted to mention real quick, Shane. Inflation occurs when prices of goods and services increase over a period of time, causing your purchasing power to decrease. Now, let's put that in a different perspective. In that, the big screen TV hanging over my fireplace is a hell of a lot better
Hmm.
for less money than the one that I could have bought in the '90s for the same dollars. So, and my cell phone that's does more things than 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, or even probably 2 years ago. So it depends on what you're buying as to whether your dollar buys more or less of something.
Well, in the 70s, economic belief was that, to quell inflation, you raise interest rates, and
Mhm.
they've risen them like they're on an elevator. The
Yeah.
problem is that to reduce interest rates is like going down an escalator. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so you're caught in this cycle now.
Mhm.
Will it be because you need to get unemployment lower? No, because that's old school.
Yeah.
Anybody that's looking at that kind of idea is dead wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is it because of
Uh,
goods and services? Well, no,
mhm.
because you have these issues with trade, and you
Mhm.
have issues with the transportation
Mhm.
system.
Yeah.
So what we're faced with is just a gee golly government issue, and that's the
Mhm.
policy of spending more than they have, and that puts everything
Mhm.
at risk, especially your debt and the bonds that support
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
That's
And for all those folks that think, well, we're sticking this debt on our grandchildren. Well, my parents stuck me with the interstate highway system and the
yeah,
space program. So,
that's right. I
is
mean,
all debt bad? No, no,
no.
all debt isn't bad. But as I say, I ended up having to pay for my parents' highway system and the space program to go to the moon. So,
And the issue now that's so important, and why this is relevant to everyone today, this moment, is because now the entire world is capitalistic, and the entire
mhm,
world now basically operates on debt.
mhm,
And China doesn't want to be held to account by the U.S., and Russia doesn't want to, but nobody wants their debt. Nobody,
mhm,
there's nobody outside
yeah,
of China or Russia that owns their debt. So
mhm,
uh,
yeah,
even the
mhm,
Europeans, when they created the European market at the end
mhm,
of the last century in 1998, 99, uh,
mhm,
Margaret Thatcher said, well, the UK is not going to join. We're keeping our British pound, and we're
mhm,
also doing our own debt. We're not going to just
mhm,
rely on the EU. So the EU had
mhm,
created its own debt, which it tries to sell, but
mhm.
so do each individual country, which is why
Yeah,
Greece. You remember Greece 15 years ago? They were going
yeah,
to sink into the sea. Well, they haven't solved that problem,
but
and
they cooked the books to get in the EU.
that's right, and that's right.
So, and nobody was watching at the, switch, I guess, so well, one of
Well,
the things you
let me just make a correlation.
Mm,
This is as bad as the president of the Ukraine saying, "We want to join NATO and the EU right now." You're right,
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Well, that's where that's where we find ourselves. Yeah, cost of goods is too high. People aren't getting not going to be able to afford anything. Well, that's what we thought back in 1980 when the inflation was 10 or 12%, and I mean, it was actually closer to 20%. I mean, they only
And
reported 8 or 10. Mm,
and interest
mm.
rates were at 18. Remember
Yeah,
that?
my first home loan was 12%, and that was a
Yeah.
GI loan, so I was in pretty
Yeah.
good shape, I thought, and unemployment was 10%. That was a tough time. This is nothing compared to what we went through in the 1980s. So, it's
But
pretty.
all these people today, all these bobbleheads on TV
Mm,
are saying, "Well, the U.S. has to have 10% unemployment." Well, like that happened in the 80s. It didn't cause
Yeah,
inflation to
it
drop.
didn't
So,
help anything. Yeah,
yeah.
we're gonna say, yeah, we were.
No, the only reality they came up with for a Nobel Peace Prize for economics was that full employment in the country is 3%. Like
Yeah,
that's the number of people changing jobs, retiring, moving
yeah.
from one place to another,
Mhm.
and just people unemployed. So
Yeah. Well,
these people are looking.
that was another thing that created inflation, Shane, or helped create it, was that during the COVID, a lot of people were forced to retire, whether they wanted to or not. So they were out of the earning, but they were into their retirement funds, spending those, and whatever other income they had planned for their retirement.
Well, and another issue with COVID is that all these people that were working in, on full floors in buildings to
Yeah.
do marketing on telephones and
Mhm.
ordering pizza, they all went home to do it.
Yeah.
Well, now they don't want to go back because they can do it from home, number one.
Yeah.
But the savings corporations thought they were going to gain from that has
Mhm.
been bilked by the
Mhm.
cost of having to maintain these leases that they signed
Yeah.
for
They got all these.
10 or
Yeah.
20 years of
They got
empty
all.
space.
Well, I'll
Empty
tell
space. you know.
I'll tell you, there's a hell of a lot of illegals that need a place to sleep. So open them up, give it to it. One of the things you mentioned earlier was about salaries and things like that, Shane. And I need to point out that in real inflation adjusted terms, the average weekly earnings of all private sector workers grow 8.7% in the 4 years of Trump. Now, that's why there's a link in the description below of the previous one that Shane and I did on the causes of inflation, what caused inflation in the United States. So there's a lot of facts and figures over there, and that's in the description below on YouTube. I'll also add it to our audio when I put up the audio of this. It'll be on Rumble. It'll be on, it'll be on LinkedIn, and also on Twitter. So
Yeah, it's important too because there's a thin line between you know, a recession and a depression. Now, you saw this kind of growth during Trump because it wasn't just regional; it was across the country.
mm-hmm.
It was gradual, and the policy being implemented by his economic policy was continuous. It wasn't gigantic. But when Biden came in and just started cutting fingers off one by one, with
Mm-hmm.
regards to everything Trump had done,
Yeah.
what he did is he caused a firestorm. Now we're in that firestorm, and we don't know how long it's going to burn for. I could see this going on for several years, actually.
Well, I can too. We stopped all the drilling, stopped all the pipelines, all of
Mhm.
that stuff, and of course that caused a reaction in the oil and gas companies. So they said, well, the supply we were supposed to get with these pipelines isn't coming, so we're going to have to do something else. And so we've got to raise prices to slow down the economy so that we can catch up because we were down during COVID as well. So.
Yeah, and the lighter side, but you don't hear this. Americans on Labor Day, for example, 35 million people drove within 5 miles of their home,
Yeah.
and you would have thought would have caused a spike in the price of gas. But there's so much in the system because people aren't buying it. They're really only buying what they need, not what they
Yeah.
want.
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say they're doing what we always do when we raise gas prices. They're consolidating trips, taking fewer trips. They're planning their driving better,
That's right.
and as a result, the gas prices are up. And
Yeah, that's
well,
right.
and that's why everything's so expensive on the store shelves is because the diesel. You got to truck stuff to Walmart and your grocery store and your food store and your shoe store, wherever it is you buy your stuff. And with diesel up, it's got to be passed on to somebody, and you're the last in line.
And one of the fascinating things I took note of on Monday was I looked at
Mhm.
the hotel statistics
Mhm.
in urban to rural areas. What I found fascinating was that the marginal suburban hotels did really well, meaning families went to a hotel to meet.
Mhm.
They didn't like drive far. So, in other words, if it's 100 miles to grandma and grandpa's, they drove 50, you drove 50 and met in the middle,
Yeah, they find
and
themselves
you
there.
stayed at a small
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
inexpensive suburban hotel.
Yeah.
And why not? The
Sure.
restaurants did well. It
Mhm.
was a terrific day for the restaurant industry on Monday. So that tells you that a lot of people weren't necessarily at home celebrating, but they were
Mhm.
celebrating in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Now, the bobbleheads will tell you, well, that's because they've been locked up for,
Yeah.
COVID.
They've been forced to
That's
work at home.
that's all over. It's all
Well, one of the things that people do to combat inflation, Shane, is collectibles, fine art, wine, baseball cards, anything that they think may appreciate over time and offset the increased cost of inflation. So a lot of people take some of their money and invest it in these various things that they hope they can recover money from later when they sell it or trade it or whatever they do with it.
well, that's right, but it's like it's a virtual it's a virtual play because what baseball card you bought for $30 today could be worth 10 cents in 10 years as opposed to 300. You don't
Well,
know.
I doubt that, but I mean, the rarer it
I don't know.
is,
Do
the more it's.
they don't even sell baseball cards anymore.
Oh, sure they do. Yeah.
You
Oh,
still
they're
get them with
absolutely.
bubble gum.
No, you order them online. You can get,
Oh.
yeah. If you've got rookie cards from somebody who turns out to be something, you got something worthwhile. And, or if they did something, pretty spectacular or
Hmm.
whatever. So, yeah, memorabilia, particularly in sports, is big bucks. If you can get
Yeah,
a,
it
yeah,
all is. Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
it's
But, I mean, look at what they're paying for Hunter Biden's art. I mean, you think that's not going to appreciate over the years? Are you kidding
Mhm.
me?
Oh, that's so good. You picked a good one there.
Well, I did. Well,
It
you
has
know,
nothing to do with the art or whether it's going to be valuable or not. It's access to the president. Period.
well, some people bought it for as a collectible because it will be worth more when he's dead. I'll bet. I'll bet on that.
Oh, okay. Well, you
I'll
should
bet.
buy one. You should buy one
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Well,
If
I've
that
been
were
looking.
true, he'd be selling prints because that's where the real money is
How do you know he's not?
for artists. I haven't seen anything being sold as a print of any of his art. So
I'll have to look that up. I would bet he is. I would bet he's selling them all over the place. So
yeah, I mean, artists keep their rights for printing rights
yeah,
on any artwork they do because that's where
for
they
sure.
make the most money.
Yeah.
They can, they print 500 of one
Hmm.
picture, and individually, they can sell them for two to 500 to $1,000 and make far more than they could selling the picture.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. No,
And it's endless. They can keep selling it like
yeah.
baseball cards.
Well, that's true. Yeah, because the longer it is, and cards are lost, or you know, mom didn't realize how valuable they were and threw them out. While you were at college. Same with comic books. Comic books.
Mhm.
You got a first edition of Superman. You're sitting in tall clover, man. So yeah, a lot of these things. Well, even gold. I mean, people have gone to gold, and I think that's part of the reason gold has gone up. We were saying back when we first started on radio 20 years ago, oh, gold's going to 5,000. Never even got close. In fact, it barely. It just passed 2,000, and and I think that part of that is
Yeah,
because
well,
of
I hate to disappoint you, but the reason that gold is at the price it's at is India.
Mhm.
It's the principal prize, like
Mhm.
your baseball cards, is jewelry,
Yeah,
and particularly Italian gold that's made into jewelry,
hmm,
earrings, necklaces, bracelets, and so forth,
sure,
bangers.
yeah,
And now
mhm,
because India is becoming more affluent and it's now moving into the first world category from developing world, it really is.
mhm,
And there's so many people there that have the ability to buy more. It's a
mhm,
traditional thing for women to wear to show that they are wealthy.
mhm,
60% of all gold jewelry is sold into India every year. And
mhm.
it'll probably grow to 72%, which will potentially drive gold another 10-15% higher.
Yeah. Well, that's what you've been telling me since
Well, it has real no industrial need.
2010.
No, but
No, it doesn't. It's a
uh,
collectible. It's
it's
a
a collectible.
collectible. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
Yeah, unlike
Yeah,
silver, which is
yeah,
a major piece of industrial
yeah.
need,
Hmm.
and copper and
Yeah,
the palladium and the other
yeah,
more expensive rare
yeah.
earth
Oh,
minerals.
which is why silver's hovered around $20 forever. So
Yeah,
but
that's exactly right.
yeah. So all right.
But that is something to watch because there will be
Mhm.
some triggers that will tell you, things are not right, and the price of silver will be one of them.
Yeah. Well, if you want to talk about silver, certainly if they ever get an infrastructure over there, Shane, if they ever get a super highway system and, some other things in place where they can really move stuff, besides ox cart or gravel roads, like you have in like you have in Canada. Uh,
That's right.
they are going to be a principal player. They're
Yeah, those.
China will be forgotten if India ever gets their act together.
That's right. Those Roman square highway stones were expensive to ship
Yeah,
from Europe to Canada to build roads. I'm telling
I
you,
know. I know.
cost a
Gosh,
lot.
I don't know what you guys were thinking. Hey, if you like what you're hearing, why don't you do yourself a real favor and subscribe? Because, well, 500 and some people have done it, so why not? Why not you? Ring the notification bell. You'll always be notified when we're on, no matter what time zone you're in. That's kind of nice to get a little reminder that that we're going to be on, and it'll tell you the time and your time zone.
That's right.
And like us, leave a comment because we'd like to know what you think, what you're, what you like, what you don't like, um, things you want us to talk about. We would be happy to do that. Of course, that's our major reason for being here. Of course.
That's right. I mean, it's sort of relative, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, and also too, if you look at the crawl across the bottom of the screen, a reminder that we are on radio every Saturday. You get 3 hours of this crap. It's just endless. And we take phone calls. We have a text line. You can text us if you don't feel comfortable talking on the air. And go to kmmsam.com, click listen now. There's no sign up needed, nothing to join. There's no club. There's no personal information of any kind that we need from you. All we need you to do is click on listen now and listen to us. And if you missed any of our shows, they're all at kmmsam.com. Look for Tom and Shane's podcast and
Just
all
and
of our audio, all of our videos there.
hitch a ride and come along for the fun. We really enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, and tell your friends. I mean, why keep it a secret? I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
you don't want to keep this
Yeah,
secret.
no,
That's
no,
no good. Yeah.
that's right.
All right. Well, the other thing I've got to talk about with inflation, Shane, we've got losers and winners, and the losers in inflation are the people. Well, they're savers because your interest rates, whatever. If you're living on fixed incomes, that's not good. Workers on fixed incomes, that's not good. Borrowers on variable rates, whole economy from the general economic uncertainty, and exporters can be less competitive if you've got a weaker dollar. The winners, debtors on fixed repayment plans, and governments with high public sector debt, owners of land and physical assets, and firms who can cut real wages.
That's
So,
right. There's only two ways to reduce a nation's sovereign debt: inflation,
no,
because if you had inflation for 10 years, that's 100 and say it's 8
mm-hmm.
10% a year. That's 100%. You've
Yeah,
reduced your debt,
yeah,
or raising taxes. So
mm-hmm. Yeah,
not a good idea right now.
no, no. That's why I've always been against public unions because why do you need a union to protect the worker from me, the person who buys the fishing license or buys the driver's license or, pays for the license plates or, whatever. I've just never really understood why those folks need a union. And the only way they can get an increase is by raising taxes.
That's right.
So give me a break. I appreciate all they do. I appreciate the lady down at the fishing license place. She is the nicest person. You go in there, you get a fishing license, which I've never understood why you have to have a license to throw a hook in the water, but apparently in America you do. So I don't know. You have fishing licenses in Canada, you must.
Well, of course we do,
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah,
but
that's a
we haven't been able to fish for 6 years. So
well. See, there you are, but you still got to buy the license. So I mean,
no, no, you don't buy
you
it.
don't
You don't know.
you don't buy the license.
Well, you can't go fishing. So
Well, I guess that's true. Well, I guess if I did drive, I wouldn't buy a license plate. So
or a
makes
driver's
sense,
license. Yeah.
or even that. So,
Oh no,
all
you
right.
need that for an ID. No,
Yeah.
you don't need an ID to
Oh,
vote.
okay.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, you need an ID for everything else, getting a haircut or getting your nails trimmed. But yeah, you got to have a don't have an ID to vote. So, hey, we got to remind you we're here every Tuesday and Thursday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Subscribe, ring the notification bell. You'll always be notified when we're on, and like us. Leave a comment, please, if you would, and we would appreciate that very much. So, thanks for watching. We hope inflation is not hurting you too bad wherever you live and work. But hey, we're here for you. So we will
And we'll
see you.
talk to you on Saturday, and
Yes,
we'll see you next Tuesday.
that will be the way we do it. So, all right, that wraps it up for us. We'll talk to you on the radio Saturday, 8 to 11 Mountain Time, KMMS AM.com.